Hello everyone, welcome back to EduTubePlus24 podcast. My name is Soda Pitch and I'm your host. I'm so happy you're here with me for episode 8 of the podcast. Every Sunday at 7 p.m, we dive into tips and strategies to help you improve your English skills. And today's topic is one that all learners face at some point. Common mistakes in English grammar and how to fix them. Now I know what you're thinking. Grammar can be tricky, right? Whether you're a beginner or have been learning English for a while, it's easy to make small mistakes that can affect your communication. But don't worry, today we're going to break down some of the most common grammar mistakes people make, and I'll show you how to fix them. By the end of this episode, you'll feel more confident in your English. So grab a notebook if you like, and let's get started. Alright, let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to talk about is a super common mistake that many English learners make. Confusing present simple with present continuous tense. Common mistake. Number 1. Many learners get confused with the present simple and the present continuous tense. Let me explain the difference first. Present simple is for things we do regularly or facts. For example, I drink coffee every morning. This means it's a habit, something that I do all the time. On the other hand, the present continuous is for things that are happening right now. For example, I am drinking coffee. This means I'm doing it at this very moment. Here's a common mistake example. I hear my students say all the time, I am go to school every day. Instead of saying, I am go to school every day, you should say, I go to school every day. Because going to school is a habit, something that you do every day, so you need to use the present simple tense. And you don't need to include the be verb am. All you need is the subject I plus the main verb go, and then to school every day. So the correct way of saying this is, I go to school every day. The error here is using am go instead of just go for a regular action. To fix this mistake, just remember, use present simple for things you do regularly, and the present continuous tense for things happening right now. The second common mistake is misusing articles like and the. These little words can be confusing, but they're really important in English. And an are used for singular, non-specific nouns or things. We use before words that start with a consonant sound, and we use an before words that start with a vowel sound. For example, I saw a cat. It's just any cat, not a specific one. Another example would be, she ate an apple. This means any apple, not a particular one. And the is used when we are talking about something specific. For example, I saw the cat. Here we're talking about a specific cat, maybe the one we mentioned before. Now let me give you an example of common mistake of misusing article. I have an umbrella. This is incorrect. The correct way of saying is, I have an umbrella. Because the word umbrella starts with a vowel sound, so we need to use an not It's a small change, but it makes a big difference. So, remember, we use before words that start with a consonant sound. We use an before words that start with a vowel sound. Another thing to keep in mind is that we use the article or an for something that is not specific, and we use the article the when we are talking about something very specific. The third common mistake is subject-verb agreement. This just means that the verb needs to match the subject in number, singular or plural. It's one of the most frequent errors. For singular subjects, we use singular verbs. For plural subjects, we use plural verbs. Here's a common mistake example. She go to the store. This is incorrect. The correct answer would be, she goes to the store. Here the subject is singular, she, so the verb needs to be singular too. So it's goes, not go. Let me give you another example. The dogs runs fast. Do you know what's wrong with this statement? Well, since dogs is plural, the verb should be run without the s at the end of the word run. So the correct answer should be, the dogs run fast. Remember, the subject-verb agreement is very important in English. The fourth common mistake is mixing up the past simple with the present perfect. This is tricky for many learners. Just remember that the past simple is used for actions that happened at a specific time in the past. We usually use the simple past to describe an event that took place at a specified time in the past. For example, I took the train this morning. I cooked spaghetti last night. Or I visited Paris last year. On the other hand, the present perfect is used for actions that happened at an unspecified time in the past or when the exact time is not important. We use the present perfect to talk about a past event which happened in a period of time up to now. For example, have you ever ridden a motorcycle? This means any time in your life up to now. Another example is, she has climbed 10 mountains. This refers to any time in her life up to now. We also use the present perfect to connect the past with the present. For example, I have forgotten my homework. This means that I don't have it now. Let me give a few more examples. He has broken his arm. This means it is broken now. I have studied French for 5 months. This means that I'm still studying French. They have lived in Paris since 2012. Again, this means that they are still living in Paris. Here's an example of a common mistake many learners make. I have visited Paris last year. Did you notice the mistake? I have visited Paris last year. This is grammatically incorrect. The correct way of saying this is, I visited Paris last year. Remember, since we're talking about a specific time in the past, which is last year, we need to use the past simple tense, visited, not have visited. Remember, here's how we form the present perfect. We form the present perfect with has or have, plus the past participle of the main verb. For example, I have climbed 3 mountains this year. Note that this year is not finished yet. As you notice here, we have the subject, I, plus have, plus the past participle of the main verb, which is climbed, with ed at the end of the verb climb. One important thing I want to point out is that we don't mention the exact time of a past event when we use the present perfect, but we can use time expressions for periods of time up to now that are not finished yet. When we are talking about a specific time in the past, we use the simple past form of a verb. Common mistake number 5 is the incorrect use of prepositions. Prepositions like in, on, and at can be confusing, but they're essential for understanding time and location in English. In is used for larger periods of time, like months, years, or enclosed spaces. For example, I was born in 1990, or he's in the room. On is used for specific days or dates. For example, my birthday is on Friday, or we'll meet on October 1st. At is for specific times or precise locations. For example, let's meet at 6 p.m. or she's at the bus stop. Here's a common mistake example. I'll meet you in 6 p.m. This is incorrect. Instead of saying I'll meet you in 6 p.m., you should say I'll meet you at 6 p.m. So to fix this, just remember that at is used for specific times, on is used for days and dates, and in is used for months, years, or larger periods of time. In this example, 6 p.m. is a specific time, so you should use at 6 p.m. instead of in 6 p.m. Common mistake number 6 is using double negatives. In English, 2 negatives make a positive, so they can change the meaning of what you're trying to say. Here, let me give you an example of using double negatives. I often hear many of my students say, I don't have no money. Do you notice the double negatives used in this statement? Right. The word don't is a negative word and no is also negative. This is what I mean by using double negatives. Instead of saying, I don't have no money, you should say, I don't have any money. Remember, by saying don't have no, it actually means you have money, because 2 negatives make a positive. And that's what I mean when I say that 2 negatives can change the meaning of what you're trying to say. So, to make it grammatically correct, you should say, I don't have any money, instead of saying, I don't have no money. Next up is common mistake number 7, which is using incorrect word order in questions. Remember that word order in English questions is very important. Here, let me give you the basic structure of a question so that you'll never make the same mistake again. The basic structure of a question is WH word, if needed, WH word, like what, where, when, why, or which, plus the auxiliary verb, plus subject, plus the main verb. If you remember this formula, you'll never make the same mistake again. Here's an example of what I mean by using incorrect word order in questions. For example, where you are going. Do you notice the incorrect word order in this question? In this example question, the auxiliary verb are comes after the subject you. This is grammatically incorrect. To fix this, just remember that when making questions, the auxiliary verb, like is or are, must come before the subject. And in this case, the auxiliary verb are must come before the subject you. So, to make grammatically correct, you should say, where are you going? And not where you are going. This is small but crucial adjustment, all right? I hope everything is clear now and that you'll never make incorrect word order in making questions again. Common mistake number 8 is forgetting to use plural forms. Sometimes learners forget to make nouns plural when talking about more than one thing. This mistake can easily confuse the listener. Here's what I mean. I have two brother. Did you notice an error in this statement? Right, it the word brother. And the word brother is a countable noun, so we need to add an S to the end of the word brother. So instead of saying I have two brother, you should say I have two brothers. So to fix this, always remember to add S or ES to nouns when they are plural. For example, one brother, two brothers, one orange, two oranges, one apple, two apples, one watch, two watches, and so forth. Now let's talk about the next one. Common mistake number 9. Overusing or misusing comparatives and superlatives. For example, comparatives like better and superlatives like best help us compare things, but they can easily be misused by English learners. Let me give you an example statement of this common mistake. For example, this is more better. Did you notice the mistake here? Right. This is more better is grammatically incorrect. But why is it incorrect? Well, because the word better is already a comparative adjective, so you don't need to say more better. Just remember that it's either better or the best. Now, the last common mistake I wanted to talk about in this episode is common mistake number 10, which is not using possessive forms correctly. We use possessive forms to show ownership, but they can be tricky to get right. Here's an example of this common mistake many of my students make. For example, when I asked them, "Is this your book?" they replied by saying, "No, this is the book of my friend." This is what I mean by not using the possessive forms correctly. "This is the book of my friend" is grammatically incorrect. It sounds somewhat correct if you don't listen to it carefully, but it's not correct. So to fix this, we use the possessive form friends to show that the book belongs to your friend. This is my friend's book, and not this is the book of my friend. So there you have it, 10 of the most common English grammar mistakes and how to fix them. I hope today's episode has helped you understand these tricky grammar points and made you feel more confident in your English. Remember, everyone makes mistakes, and the key is to learn from them. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of EduTubePlus24 podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. I post new episodes every Sunday at 7 p.m, so be sure to come back next week for more tips on improving your English. And as always, keep practicing, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.